Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or if you're streaming the show, we have apps for both Extra Sports and KVOR. They are free to download, free to use, and there are many more goodies than just to be able to listen to this or any of your favorite shows in crystal clear streaming audio. Of course, there's another way that you can consume the show on a daily basis, which I highly recommend, and that is to watch it wherever you scroll, because you're scrolling already. Might as well watch the show while you're at it. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program, and I'd love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. You can call or text them in, or you could drop a comment on the live stream that I just mentioned. We'll get to the Broncos, their final preseason game tonight against Minnesota. No Bo Nix, takes some of the shine off of it, but there are some things to watch for, especially if you love cut down day and the decisions facing Sean Payton. So we'll talk about that coming up. And I want to start in the NFL, but with an AFC West rival. And I don't know that this preseason could have worked out better for Clint Kubiak in this regard. Raiders got a lot of questions, and the Raiders don't look like a very good football team. Let me get that out of the way, first of all, in case you think that I'm getting ready to gas up the Raiders bandwagon. I am not. But when it comes to his quarterbacks, this could not work out any better. Because while Fernando Mendoza looked very good in game one, he tapered off enough in games 2 and 3 where the mass hysteria, the drum beats of start Fernando week 1, they've quieted down. So now there's not the outside pressure on Clint Kubiak to make a decision and to play Fernando Mendoza, because he just wasn't so good in these last 2 preseason games to say, oh, he's got to start. You can't not start him. And to that point, last night, completes only 50% of his passes, throws an interception, no touchdowns, and the Raiders lose to the 49ers 18-12. Now, that lacks a little nuance because the interception was tipped. It was off the hands of Mendoza's own receiver, and he was on multiple occasions rushed so bad that there was nothing he could possibly do but turtle up and just go down, which has spoken to my point that it's not that Fernando Mendoza is not going to be ready for the regular season. It's more so that the Raiders aren't going to be ready for him. He is the franchise. He is the first shining light that this organization has had in many years. So they have to do this right. But they also have to get this guy on the field. Because if you sit Fernando Mendoza a whole year, either because you just want him to learn from Kirk Cousins, or you don't feel like your team is capable of supporting a rookie quarterback, then you will look at this year, if you're the Raiders, and say it was a complete waste of time. We finished in last place. We didn't win many games. And we didn't even get to see Fernando. He's going to play. But at a time when we don't know if Ashton Genty is going to play, we don't know how long Genty is out. I mean, they have Mike Washington, who's looked pretty good, but you spent a top 10 pick on Ashton Genty. The dude better be healthy and the dude better produce. But Clint Kubiak seems to think that Ashton Genty is going to be available week 1, but we shall see. But that's what I'm saying. It works out well because the Raiders showed that they're not a good football team. They're not going to protect the quarterback very well. Ashton Genty is hurt, and Fernando did not play so well these last 2 preseason games for Clint Kubiak to make any other decision than to start Kirk Cousins. Here was Clint Kubiak last night on Fernando Mendoza's play.
He needs another 3 preseason games. All those rookies do. And now that the season's starting, the practice reps get smaller, and that's just life. But us as coaches, we got to get them ready to play, keep developing them.
I promise you that barring injury, Fernando Mendoza will be the starting quarterback of the Raiders in both meetings against the Denver Broncos, which I don't even think is that hot of a take. The Broncos don't play the Raiders till week 11. He's definitely going to be in by then. I still give it about a month. Let the Raiders start off 1-3, 0-4, and then it will be there's no way they couldn't even fool the most gullible fans into thinking that after a 1-3, 0-4 start, they have any chance of even sniffing the playoffs. And it'll be time. It'll be Fernando time. And you got to put him out there. It's a difficult thing for Clint Kubiak. I'm not trying to say his decision on when to put Fernando Mendoza in the starting lineup is an easy one, because it's not. The Raiders' schedule is brutal. Their football team is even more brutal. But you got to get this guy on the field. And Clint Kubiak just intimated it right there. Fernando's not going to get as many reps in practice because Kirk Cousins has got to get ready for the game that Sunday. It's even more of a reason that you got to get Fernando Mendoza on the field. It's the reps, but it's also the experience. And despite the way that Fernando tapered off after, I thought, a great start to the preseason, I still think he's ready. He's ready to start football games in the NFL. But that's the first step. Right? Now he's got to get ready to be good in NFL games and to win NFL games. He's not going to do that with limited reps in practice for an entire season. And getting this first month out of the way, still learning a little bit from Kirk Cousins, picking up some things, it'll be good for Mendoza. But how about week 5? Does week 5 sound good? Who do the Raiders even play week 5? I mean, there's no soft spot. Their soft spot is week 1 because they play Miami. After that, there's no good spot to put Fernando Mendoza in here. You're home against Miami week 1. Then you go to the Chargers and to the Saints. Saints, not too bad. Then you're home against Kansas City, at New England, home against Buffalo, home against the Rams, at the Jets, and you go, okay, there it is. Right? Week 8, get him in there for the Jets. You don't think that Aaron Glenn is going to be throwing the kitchen sink at Fernando Mendoza? By then, Aaron Glenn might be Like, if Aaron Glenn loses to the Raiders November 1st, he might be fired the next day. So even the game that you look at and say, oh, there's the soft landing spot, it might not be, because you will have a team that's desperate. And then you got San Fran, Seattle, Denver, and Cleveland. It's San Francisco followed by 3 of the best defenses in the National Football League. But here's the thing. You live in the AFC West. You're going to get the Broncos twice a year. You're going to get the Chargers twice a year. You play in the AFC. There's not a perfect time in terms of, if we get Fernando in here, then he can, learn on the job a little bit and be ready to go when things get difficult. It's going to be difficult immediately. You got to put him in there when you feel like he has learned all he's going to learn from sitting behind Kirk Cousins and taking limited snaps in practice. And it's also going to be, if the Raiders come out of the gates 0-4, 1-3, there's going to be not just the external pressure from Raider Nation saying it's time to put in Fernando. You might get some of it from inside the organization. The GOAT might be knocking on Clint Kubiak's door and saying, hey, when are we going to play Fernando? So for right now, it's fine. I don't think you could, forcefully argue that Fernando Mendoza has done enough to win the job, nor have you seen enough to say that Kirk Cousins lost the job. And that's the way Clint Kubiak framed it, was it's Cousins' job to lose. He didn't lose it, and Fernando didn't win it. Is Fernando ready? Yes. He can start week 1. But because of everything that has happened over the course of this preseason, I don't know that there are a lot of people going, it makes no sense to start Kirk Cousins. I think you have a variety of reasons, like, okay, Kirk Cousins can go out and start this season. But I still believe that the Raiders, if they handle this right, have their franchise quarterback. The Steelers might have 4 franchise quarterbacks. That was the other story last night. Now, Will Howard outplayed Drew Aller. He was better. But you have Aaron Rodgers. You know his role. You know he's going to be QB1. But you have Aller, 350 yards passing, a couple of passing touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, did not throw an interception. Will Howard played very well last night. And then you had Mason Rudolph, who ends his preseason throwing only 1 incompletion. So people in Pittsburgh are asking, who could you possibly cut for a franchise that has seemingly scraped the bottom of the barrel to find quarterbacking? All of a sudden, they have too much quarterbacking. They have too many quarterbacks. But Mike McCarthy really isn't considering keeping all 4 of them on the roster, right?
I think it's a very accurate evaluation on your part. Yeah, I feel good about the quarterback room. I've been saying it for quite some time. They've showed it on the field. So, we got 2 veterans that we can win with, and we got 2 young guys that we're real excited about their future.
He might keep all 4. We're sitting here with one of the main storylines tonight. Can Sam Ehlinger do anything to stay on the Broncos roster? The debates of whether the Broncos will keep even 3 quarterbacks, and McCarthy's like, I might keep 4. Is there really not? And look, I'm saying all of this a little bit with tongue in cheek. Right? The idea that the Steelers have 4 franchise quarterbacks on their roster. But if I'm a Steelers fan, I don't want to lose Drew Aller or Will Howard. I don't want to do that. I mean, this franchise that is not that far removed from the grand Kenny Pickett experiment might actually have 2 young quarterbacks worth at least a look. So to me, and I know they'll never do this. I know the Steelers won't, so I'll say it, and I know they're not going to do it. I cut Mason Rudolph. Is there really not another position that you could use another body at, that you're going to keep 4 quarterbacks on the roster? It seems 3 seems too much. 3 seems like too many. You're going to keep 4? Do you really have that shallow of a pool of talent on your roster that you can't possibly find one other guy that instead of a 4th quarterback? But maybe they don't. But I know why they're not going to cut Mason Rudolph. Because it's the Steelers' whole ethos. They just they refuse to be bad. They just refuse. And if Aaron Rodgers were to go down, whether it's Will Howard or Drew Aller coming in, there's a decent chance that the Steelers would, for this season, become bad. And they don't want to do that. And it blows my mind why they don't. If Aaron Rodgers is hurt, the season's over, right? Like, let's just call it what it is. So you might as well play one of these young guys. I don't understand why Mason Rudolph would have a spot on the roster. And I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve one, but it's a numbers game. You can't keep 4 quarterbacks. Do you dangle one in a trade? I don't know. Not Aller or Howard. You going to give up on them and give them to another team with the risk that they come back to haunt you? Now, I don't want to make too much. I like Drew Aller more than I like Will Howard. But I'm just trying to put myself in Pittsburgh's situation and say for a team that has just been, it has just not been good quarterbacking since Ben Roethlisberger. You got, the Aller and Howard are a couple of lottery tickets. But the Steelers haven't even had a lottery ticket in a long while. It's legitimately a conundrum, I grant you. But to me, again, talk about with the Raiders, the limited practice snaps, and you're going to make it even worse if you have Mason Rudolph. If I'm in charge, Aaron Rodgers is my guy. If he gets hurt, welcome to the future. I'm not putting in Mason Rudolph to try and right the ship and keep the ship afloat when I'm in the AFC North. I'm pulling the plug and I'm saying, here come one of these young guys. And unlike the situation with Fernando, I actually like the team that would be around Drew Aller and Will Howard. Like, I actually think they have a chance to have a little bit of success. Not enough to supplant Cincinnati or Baltimore in the division. But I think that's a better, with Mike McCarthy as the coach, and Pittman and Metcalf. That's not a bad spot for either Drew Aller or Will Howard to be in. Maybe the most interesting NFL city for cut down day will be Pittsburgh. Is Mike McCarthy really going to keep 4 quarterbacks? I say bye-bye to Mason Rudolph. That's what I would do. Take your thoughts, 719-247-1313 on the Raiders or the Steelers. We will get into the Broncos in their preseason finale tonight against the Vikings, what I am watching for. Coming up next, we stay in the NFL, kind of. Do you see this story? Catfishing has now reached the sports world. This is Drive Time Sports. What's that saying? If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. What if you have 4, which the Steelers think that they do with Rodgers, Rudolph, Aller, and Will Howard? Mike McCarthy leaving the door open for the Steelers to keep all of them. I say Mason Rudolph should be the on man out. But if I'm the Steelers, I want to hang on to Aller and Howard and see what I have in them. Tom has a saying, so if you have 2 QBs, you have none. What if you have 4? Tom says Steelers have 0 franchise quarterbacks on the roster. And I said that Howard and Aller are lottery tickets. That's what they are. They're lottery tickets. But Drew Aller, a calendar year ago, was at the top of many mock drafts. And then he got hurt. So, look, I'm not sitting here saying I 100% believe Drew Aller or Will Howard are franchise quarterbacks. What I am saying is that the talent is there with Aller. That's really interesting. His talent's really interesting. And I mean, you keep them both. I just want to see what you have. And but I also want to see the Pittsburgh Steelers invest in a young quarterback, whether it's Howard or Aller or it's somebody in this year's draft. Just invest in a young quarterback. I know Kenny Pickett ended terribly. I understand that. You gotta get back up on that horse. This treadmill of has-beens is just not going to get it done. You're not going to get to ultimately where you want to go. So maybe they have 0. But you don't know that for sure unless you give Will Howard and or Drew Aller the opportunity to show you with a roster that's pretty good. It's a pretty good roster. If Fernando Mendoza was quarterbacking the Pittsburgh Steelers, I might consider them for a playoff spot. Like, that'd be a great place for Fernando to be. We'll see if they end up keeping 4 on the roster. One guy that will not be on an NFL roster come Monday because he has never been on an NFL roster. Dejan Love. Have you seen this story today? Dejan Love has been arrested by the FBI for scamming women out of upwards of $1.3 million. And he did this where everybody scams people, on social media, pretending he was a player in the National Football League, pretending he was on the 49ers. He got women to give him money for investments, give him money for gifts and all sorts of stuff, scammed. And if you want to go down a rabbit hole tonight, please go down this one. See what this guy was doing. The lengths he was going to keep the charade up. And then you just look at it and like, just get a job, dude. You're working this hard to scam people, but again, he made $1.3 million. But there are, I just wish, and I feel bad for these women, but I just wish that they would have consulted any sports fan in their life. And I feel like it comes up if you're dating or talking to, DMing with who you think is an NFL star, you're not going to brag to anybody about that. All I see on social media are these women talking about dating celebrities and professional athletes. Like, all of these women didn't feel the need to go public with this, to go to any of their friends or family and go, hey, I'm talking to an NFL player, or I'm going to pay for an NFL player to come and visit me. Or because if they would have done that, then they would have known that this guy's a scammer. And it's not just like, dude, there are a lot of NFL players that you and I wouldn't even know. I could throw out a name of an NFL player and you'd be like, who? 53 players on every NFL roster. We get up to 90 per roster during training camp. I'm not saying that I went through my 49ers Rolodex and my roster in my head and went Dejan Love. That guy's not on the Niners. But if you look at this guy's videos, so one, he stages a mock contract signing with the 49ers in his living room. He's sitting in his living room signing a piece of paper that he claims is an NFL contract. Meanwhile, somebody is filming him and asking him questions, and it looks more like a signing day for a high school athlete. Like, since when? I've seen the Broncos post pictures of almost every player that they've ever signed signing the contract in their offices on the team's social media. I can't remember the last time that an NFL player had to post through his own social media him signing the contract. And then, and like the guy says, like, what's the decision you made? Like, no, you're getting this wrong. That's what we say to high school kids. What's your decision? Not in the NFL unless it's LeBron. So that would be a red flag. If a female friend of mine showed me this video, this is the guy that I'm talking to. He's an NFL player. Look, this is him signing with the 49ers. I'd go, I don't think so. I don't think so. But the dead giveaway is a video where he is on the beach running routes. Okay? Just right there, you're like, come on. He's wearing a 49ers helmet. I kid you not. The guy is running routes on the beach in nothing but swim trunks and a Niners helmet. They are victims. This guy deserves to be punished to the fullest extent of the law. I have no respect for people like this, male or female. And I think the number of these type of people are growing exponentially every day. But if they just would have shown this guy to anybody with even a nominal knowledge when it comes to the NFL, would go, that dude is not in the NFL. He is not an NFL player. Feel bad. I am someone who loves love and wants people to fall in love. So it really, in all seriousness, it's really crappy that these people take advantage of people who are simply looking for love. And maybe if they can fall in love with somebody who has means, then they like that all the better. But Dejan Love has never and will never play for the 49ers or any other team. He may play some pickup football in the yard in prison. Maybe he could post that on social media and see how many girls slide into his DMs. Crazy. Can't trust anybody out there. That's the sad moral to the story. DTA, right? Wasn't that a Steve Austin thing? DTA, don't trust anybody. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. 719-247-1313. And then we had the a story from Major League Baseball where a once prized Dominican prospect put on a ruse of his own to get signed. He was older than what he was. Isn't this the Danny Almonte story again? Remember him from a million years ago? This big kid playing for, I think it was New York's Little League team, and he's just dominating, and he's twice as tall as everybody else, and it turned out that he was lying about his age. Doctored the paperwork. Happened again. Still doing that. He was actually 16 and teams thought he was 12. 12 and 13. Competing against 12 and 13-year-olds. The limit, there's no limit to where people will go in order to achieve fame and fortune, is there? 719-247-1313. Coming up next, this week's edition of the Drive Time Sports Sound Countdown. See, this is why shows like this have producers. I don't have a producer. So this is what happens. I'm going on and on about the catfish 49ers player, and meanwhile, history is being made because I'm not sitting scrolling through my phone. That's what a producer does. And if I had a producer, they'd be waving their arms wildly at me during the last segment and saying, table this discussion about the fake 49ers player. Historic breaking news. Cale Makar has signed an 8-year extension with the Colorado Avalanche that will reportedly pay him $20.4 million a year. Before I get into my thoughts and take yours at 719-247-1313, how about you hear from the man himself? This posted to the Avalanche social media platforms. Nine years because his extension will not kick in until after this year. But what sticks out to me, and we had this discussion yesterday regarding the theoretical Cale Makar extension, he didn't end up sacrificing years or value, term or dollars. He got the maximum amount of years with 8, and he becomes the highest paid player in NHL history. Not defenseman in NHL history, highest paid player in NHL history at $20.4 million a year. Cale Makar did not sacrifice. What? It really begs the question, what took so long? What did the Avs get out of Cale? That's not a negotiation. Where's the negotiating? Did Cale ask for 30? I thought that it was going to be a trade-off here between, years or money. And Cale got it all. 8 years at $20.4 million a year, becoming the highest paid player in the history of the National Hockey League. And Cale Makar deserves every single nickel, because we don't do pennies anymore. Every single nickel over those next 8 years. It was abundantly clear to anyone who watched that Western Conference final against the Vegas Golden Knights that the most important player, maybe by a skosh, maybe by a smidge, maybe it's 1A, 1B, but it's Cale Makar. The Avalanche have built everything around him. And without him in that playoff series, and yes, Nathan MacKinnon was also banged up, but they were without Cale, and they looked completely and utterly lost. It took a team that was an absolute juggernaut in a wagon and reduced them to rubble. There is no debating whether Cale Makar deserves this contract. But here becomes the issue moving forward. You got to navigate around that. Right? That's just the reality. If you're going to pay Cale Makar $20.4 million over the next 8 years, you're happy to do it, but it leads to some decisions down the roster. And I think the first one is going to be this is the last season Arturi Lehkonen is going to be with the Colorado Avalanche. The way it's looking now, Lehkonen will not be with the Avs. They're going to have to. They're just simply not going to be as deep of a hockey team as they were last year. Right? We're already seeing that because they traded Valerian Nichushkin. But they're just not going to be as deep a hockey team. But if you want depth or you want Cale Makar, you want Cale Makar. So this is all easy. This is all easy for the Colorado Avalanche. But to say that there are no ramifications, to say that it doesn't make Joe Sakic's job a wee bit more difficult moving forward to sustain this championship window, I mean, it absolutely will. And to have Joe Sakic at the wheel, like fully both hands on the wheel, as opposed to the last couple of years when he would only had seemingly one hand or maybe no hands on the wheel, was just maybe a backseat driver with Chris McFarland. This is an important period in Avalanche history. Right? We're getting further away from the Stanley Cup year every day. And all of these players, except Cale, because he doesn't age, everybody else is getting older. And with McFarland leaving, Joe Sakic assuming those GM duties to get this item of business done, but also get this team configured through the next couple of years, I think will be important. And maybe Joe Sakic will eventually name a general manager underneath him, but that person will not have the control that Chris McFarland did. Not yet, anyway. So they got the guy I think you want at the helm here to try and navigate starting next year a defenseman that makes over $20 million a year. Take your thoughts on Cale's deal. 8 years, $20.4 million per. 719-24-7, 1313. He deserves it. I did, but I will say I did think that Cale Makar was going to give the Avs a discount. I did. I thought that the contract the average annual value would start with a 1 and not a 2. I don't begrudge him for not doing that. But he kind of breaks from a recent trend of the Avalanche being able to get deals done and keeping some money set aside. Signing a guy for less than maybe you would think they would get out on the open market. I think I would rather look at it instead of saying, well, should Cale Makar have signed a lesser deal? Should he have given the Avalanche a discount? I look at it this way, that given who Cale Makar is, not just his importance to the Avalanche, but who he is in the NHL, right? Both now and in the grand scheme of things. And we haven't seen a defenseman this talented since the days of Bobby Orr. Maybe there's something, apropos about someone as unique as Cale Makar not taking any sort of a hometown discount. I am I think it's the average. It's the annual value that is surprising me, not the 8. Once I heard that it was imminent, I thought, okay, we got a long way to go to September 16th. They're getting this done so they can get the 8 years. Now, it was an interesting thing that I brought up yesterday, or has been brought up by other people that I talked about on this show more accurately, and that is, the idea of whether Kale would maximize the average annual value and take a shorter deal so he could go back into the free agent pool, or not even in the free agent pool, just so he could sign another lucrative deal with the Colorado Avalanche. I didn't put a ton of stock into that, but it was something interesting to talk about. I thought it was going to be, thought very well could be the 8 years, but $20.4 million a year. I am surprised by that. But I will continue to say that Kel McCarr deserves it. Take your thoughts. 719-24-7. 1313. Cale Makar becoming the highest paid player in NHL history. We'll talk more about it and get into the Broncos, their preseason finale tonight against Minnesota as well. You are listening to 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in. Great to have you. Business has picked up in the old news cycle over the last hour. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show through either the Extra Sports 1300 or KVOR app, or whether you are watching the show anywhere you scroll. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, and Instagram, streaming the show live, and that is a great place to interact with this program as well by simply dropping a comment on the stream, or you can call or text in the show at 719-247-1313. The breaking news of the afternoon: Cale Makar has become the highest paid player in the history of hockey, signing an 8-year, $163.2 million deal. The average annual value is 20.4. Why that is notable is because the max amount, and there is a max in the NHL, the max amount that Cale Makar could have signed for per year is 20.8. So I take back what I said earlier. Cale did give the Avs a discount. He could have taken $400,000 more. I don't know that they could afford me for $400K. That's not going to get them anything. But he does sign for slightly less than he could have. But this is not, we're not going down that road. Cale Makar went to the Avs, or his agent went to the Avs and said he is the best defenseman since Bobby Orr. You completely cratered with him injured against the Golden Knights. Pay that man his money. And Joe Sakic said, with pleasure. I don't even know why it took so long. What negotiation was going on that they landed on an 8-year, $163.2 million deal? Seems like Cale won. And he deserves to win. And we live in a time now in the NHL where there's so many offensively gifted defensemen. But Cale is the standard. And I've said this before. When all is said and done, Cale Makar will be the standard to which all defensemen are held to. Especially since the role of a defenseman is changing because of the talent, the Quinn Hugheses, the Zach Werenskis. There's still some of your prototypical defensemen, what you grew up thinking a defenseman is. Jacob Slavin, former CC Tiger, Stanley Cup champion, is that guy. He's a throwback. Every year that goes by, you're getting more and more of these guys that you could easily play out on the wing and have them be one of your best players. But you can get them at the blue line. And if this doesn't at least push back against the notion that Cale Makar is purely an offensive defenseman, I think $20.4 million a year says that the Avalanche think he's a little bit better defensively than maybe some people will say he is. But he's not Jacob Slavin as far as a defensive defenseman. He's not. But he offers way more offensively. And he has improved as a defender. And this isn't a, like the Nikola Jokic defense argument where you're just trying to find some way to say something other than he's not a good defender. The fact of the matter is Nikola Jokic is not a good defensive player. Just not. But Cale Makar is a good defensive defenseman. He is not as good as the guy next to him on the blue line. And a lot of what Kale is able to do is due to playing with Devon Taves. There's no doubt about it. Last time I checked, hockey is a team sport. It matters who you're playing with. But I also think that works against Cale Makar because when the Avs are so good defensively, and mind you, they gave up the fewest goals of any team in the NHL last year. They look to Devon Taves first and say he's the reason. Maybe he's the biggest reason. But this is an elite defenseman pair, arguably the best in the league because of what they do going both directions, skating backwards and skating forward. And with this, it was already going to be at this point when Cale Makar signed his deal, right? Because he was going to obliterate what Bo Byram is making with Chicago at 12.5. Even with the discount, he was going to obliterate that number. And he was going to be in the Kirill Kaprizov world in terms of how much he was going to get paid. But the fact that he becomes the first NHL player to surpass $20 million a year, this conversation was already going to come up because it's a natural thing to ask. Is Cale Makar the best player in the NHL? And we've been trying to sort through that for the last couple of years because we've been talking about Nathan MacKinnon winning a Hart Trophy, deserving more than one Hart Trophy. But this, as difficult as that series against Vegas was, that was the aha moment. It's Cale. He's the most valuable player on the Colorado. And when you're the most valuable player on one of the best teams year in and year out, you should be in the conversation for the best player in the National Hockey League. And it's just because we're still a little biased towards forwards, right? We look at the goals, we look at the assists. That's kind of what we start with when we're talking about the best players in the league, right? Connor McDavid. But Cale Makar gives us a great opportunity, to ask the question, how many players in the NHL would you rather have over Cale Makar? And I've been saying Nathan MacKinnon's closing in on Connor McDavid, so I'm not going to say that Cale Makar is better than Connor McDavid. But now that we reorder things with the Avalanche, none of this is to, criticize Nathan MacKinnon at all. Like, this is not an anti-Nathan MacKinnon take. It's just, it became very clear during that Western Conference final that the Avalanche are in a worse way when they don't have Cale. And certainly the Avs have two of the top 5 players in the league, but I think the way that you order them may have changed over the last couple of years. That conversation is going to be had in the coming days. Is Cale Makar the best player in the NHL? And if not, how close is he to the top? Now, part of this is, yes, Cale Makar was the next guy to get paid. Right? We talk about this with NFL quarterbacks all the time. Right? It's not always necessarily that the best quarterback in the league is set to get paid. It's just the next guy to get paid inevitably becomes the top paid player in the league. And it was Cale Makar's turn next. But when you look at his standing already as a top 5 player, and you see the investment that the Avalanche are making in him for the next 8 years, you go, it's not just that he's the next guy to get there. It's that he is one of the 3 best players in hockey. But now this sets the market, because now Quinn Hughes is going to be the next guy to get paid, but he's not gonna surpass Cale Makar. Just like in the conversation of who the best defenseman in the NHL is, Quinn Hughes does not surpass Cale Makar. He's not going to get paid more than Cale Makar is. Maybe that, and maybe in some way, even though Cale Makar has surpassed $20 million a year, maybe there's some NHL general managers going, okay, at least we don't have to pay our guy that much because our guy's not better than Cale Makar. And in the future, if the NHL keeps going down the path it's going, midway through this deal, we'll be looking at Cale Makar, not to the Pat Surtain level, like how is this guy not one of the highest paid corners in the league, right? Pat Surtain is way down there, so much so that the Broncos just went, we feel bad. Here's some money, so we can put you higher up on the list of the highest paid corners. We feel bad that you've been buried on this list with all the corners who have gotten deals. We're not going to look at Cale's deal that way. I don't think any time over the next 8 years to say, wow, Cale Makar's criminally underpaid. I don't see that kind of exponential growth for the NHL in the next 8 years, and exponential growth in the cap to where another defenseman is going to, that multiple defensemen are going to blow past this number. But I think somewhere around halfway through this deal, you'll be looking like, okay, now Cale's what, 3, 4, 5? Because I don't think anybody that like Quinn Hughes that is going to get paid soon is going to surpass him. But you look at, I have to check, Matthew Schaefer, I don't think he's signed. No. So like a Matthew Schaefer might surpass him in a few years. No, nobody in the next year or two. I don't think it's going to pass Cale Makar. But eventually one will, maybe another, maybe another. And the sticker shock will wear off a little bit. There's some sticker shock. Not that he's not worth it. Worth every bit of it. But 8 years, $163.2 million. There's some sticker shock. Take your thoughts on the deal for Cale Makar, 719-247-1313, or drop a comment on the live stream. Draft Time Sports continues next. Speak of the devil, Cale Makar brings us back in here on Drive Time Sports, and he's the guy we've been talking about over the last hour. Cale Makar setting an NHL record by signing an 8-year, $163.2 million deal, 20.4 per year. That averages out to he's the first player in NHL history to make $20 million or more, or will be when next season rolls around. Again, important to note, he'll make $9 million this year, and the extension will kick in. That is $27.2 million more than the next highest paid player in the NHL, which is Kirill Kaprizov. $27.2 million more. Cale Makar just didn't set the mark for highest paid players in the NHL. He obliterated it. And text coming in, when other guys sign, the contract will not look as bad. And I'm not saying that the contract looks bad, but the maybe nervousness about how is Joe Sakic going to build a team in the immediate future around Cale Makar, just to ease that. Yes, there over the span of his 8-year contract, there will be multiple players that will pass him, and that's how we need to look at Cale Makar now. When you get paid this money, it's not that you're a defenseman. You're an NHL player, right? And not to say that defenseman is negative. Like we do the same thing in football. We don't just talk about Josh Allen being the best quarterback in the league. We talk about him being the best player in the league. That's the conversation we need to have around Cale Makar now. He's getting paid that much. He needs to be discussed and compared to McKinnon, of course, in his own backyard, but McDavid, Draisaitl, and go on down the list. That's the group he's in now. Best defenseman in the league, that's old news. He's been that. He's been that for years. Now it's leveled up to, is he the best player in the NHL? And every year that goes by, Connor McDavid's stranglehold on that spot loosens up a bit. But I'd probably still go Connor McDavid at this point. But Cale Makar is in that conversation. Now, as far as defensemen that are coming up on contracts to just see if Cale could get surpassed, I mentioned Quinn Hughes is also a free agent after this year. He will not get more money than Cale. There's not really any other defensemen that are even worth discussing when it comes to free agency this upcoming year. Zach Werenski of the Blue Jackets is up in 2 years. That's another one. It's certainly when you're ranking the best defenseman, Werenski, and winning the Norris Trophy would also signal that he is one of the best in the league. So he's going to get paid. So maybe there's another one that might rival him. 2029, I think this is where Schaefer comes in. Let's see. Evan Bouchard, Miro Heiskanen would be the year after that. So those are some of the names that could get into Cale territory, but I don't think they're going to. I think Quinn Hughes is going to be in that mix. I think Zach Werenski is going to be playing for another hockey team, so I don't know that he's going to be in that mix. But I think what we're going to talk about is forwards, centermen, wingers, maybe surpassing Cale Makar. So it doesn't seem like Cale Makar did the Avs any favors here. seemed like he just went in and said, I want all the monies and all the years. And the Avalanche said, yes, sir. We already have the papers typed up. But one thing that you, I suppose, can say to the texter's point, you got Cale Makar for 8 years. He's not going to be the highest paid player in the NHL for the next 8 years. I don't know if we'll ever get to bargain territory and label Cale Makar's contract as a bargain. But there will be players that will pass it, certainly over the next 8 years. Couple of your texts here. Mark from Falcon asked, wasn't Makar and Taves on the bench for Canada when the U.S. Player being Jack Hughes card them up for a goal? One of them it was Cale. Cale Makar was on the ice when that happened. But we're not gonna do the thing where Cale Makar's not worth $20.5 million a year because he was on the ice when Team USA won gold. Not doing that. If there's anybody that you want to blame, anyone you want to point the finger at on the Avs, it's Nathan MacKinnon for missing that empty net or that wide open net. To be fair, it wasn't completely empty. No, Cale was on the ice. Tom asks, why do you think McFarland left? After he says you give Makar whatever he wants. Chris McFarland left for Nashville because I think he recognizes a few things. One, there are some family connections out there. Two, he wants his own team. He wants to build. He took what Joe Sakic had, and he, tacked onto it. Wasn't able to win a Stanley Cup, but he certainly. I do not look at Chris McFarland's tenure with the Avalanche as a failure. But now this is a chance to build up Nashville, and that's what these GMs love. GMs want to get in there, and it's why I've always said if the Rockies had competent ownership, they should be able to attract some pretty bright baseball minds, because who doesn't want to try and figure out the puzzle of Coors Field? If you give them all the resources they need to be successful, which the Rockies organization has not over the years. These guys, they want to build up a team and say, this is my team. My fingerprints are on this. I was the architect. The architect of this Avalanche team is still Joe Sakic. So there's that. And I do think that Chris McFarland recognized that it was going to be difficult to sustain this championship window that the Avalanche have. Now, having Cale Makar will help, certainly, and the Avs I don't expect to ever bottom out. But this is what comes with the Cale Makar contract, is that things are it's going to get a little bit tighter financially for the Avalanche, and it's going to be harder to navigate, and you're going to have to take a scalpel to this roster, whereas in Nashville, he could take a hammer to it. So it was, for a variety of reasons, the right time for him to go. But that does lead me into something that I've been pondering over the last hour as I've been talking about Cale Makar. It's not a death sentence for the Colorado Avalanche as a Stanley Cup contender to pay Cale Makar this time. It's not. So I want to make that very clear. But he is 1 year away from starting to cash checks from the richest deal in NHL history. Some things are going to change with the Colorado Avalanche in the coming years. I'll pose this question to you. Is this does this mean that the Avalanche should be more aggressive regarding Connor Hellebuck, who formally publicly requested a trade from the Winnipeg Jets yesterday? Is there any sense from you as an Avs fan, not that this is the last stand, but this is that perhaps a team that's coming off of winning the President's Trophy, right? One of the best seasons in Avalanche history, one of the best seasons in NHL history last year. Mostly intact coming into this year. Are we going to see a different looking Avalanche roster 2 years from now? And should that mean that the Avalanche push a little bit harder if they could to possibly land a Connor Hellebuck, just to be able to maximize this version of the Colorado Avalanche? I think even more so is yes. I said this yesterday before I knew what Cale Makar was going to sign for. I said that the Avalanche should be pushing to land Connor Hellebuck. My only doubt in what I said was that the Avalanche would be able to put together a package enticing enough for the Jets to bite. But they already were reportedly discussing this internally, going after Connor Hellebuck. So now with the reality sinking in that Cale Makar is going to be making $11+ million more after this season, and some difficult roster decisions are going to have to be made, is this the time to strike? Connor Hellebuck making public his want to be out of Winnipeg. He's going to have no shortage of suitors. Does this mean the Avalanche push a little bit harder? Or better yet, because I think the Avs are much more in the know over this process than you and I were. So I think they knew that they were heading in this direction, maybe even a year ago. Like, it's their job. It's their job to see where the market's going, the cap is going, how they value their player. They've had conversations with Cale Makar's agent. So they had to know much sooner than we did that it was going to be in the realm of $20 million a year. So could that have been part of the reason why they at least internally discussed going after Connor Hellebuck? I think so. I don't think I'm connecting two dots that can't be connected here. But for you, as an Avalanche fan, you may like the woodshed. Not calling it the other thing. You may like the woodshed. But now you're starting to do the math. And now you're understanding what's going to have to happen in the next couple of years from a salary cap perspective, from a roster perspective. The Avalanche are going to end up being more top heavy. That's just going to be the natural byproduct of this. So while you're at it, while you can potentially, do you add more to that top? I think you do. I still don't know if the Avalanche can put together a trade that Winnipeg would accept. This is a division rival after all. But the desire, the push should be there from the Colorado Avalanche. And maybe it was already there. Maybe it's not even Cale Makar's contract. And Cale Makar's contract in this extension just puts it more into focus. I think you were, kind of thinking about this after they got bounced by Vegas. You're like, they need something. We know they need something. What could that be? Mackenzie Blackwood did play well in that final game of the series, but that was at the end of a season where there was no doubt who the better goaltender on the Colorado Avalanche was. So are you 100% sold on Mackenzie Blackwood, even as well? Because I said after they got swept, I said that this next season is all about Mackenzie Blackwood. Right? He's healthy going into the offseason. You got to pour into this guy. You still have Wedgwood if need be, but Mackenzie Blackwood has got to finally be the guy. If I can turn Mackenzie Blackwood into Connor Hellebuck, I'm doing it. I doubt their ability to, but the desire should be there. 719 24/7 1313. More Drive Time Sports coming up right after this. We'll get back into the Cale Makar discussion at the top of the hour during what's driving the show. But in the meantime, don't want to go away from tradition, recent tradition, still tradition, even if it's recent. And that is the Drive Time Sports Sound Countdown, where every Friday I want to bring you the best sports sound of the week. Now, behind the scenes, I'll let you peek behind the curtain. There's been some adjusting of the countdown based on recent events. Regardless, the 10 best sports sound bites of the week, as voted on by me. I mean, I welcome your input. If you ever want to nominate, feel free. 719-247-1313. But I didn't even have a producer to tell me that Cale Makar had signed as I was in the middle of talking about the fake San Francisco 49ers player. Don't have the staff to put together an apparatus to be able to vote. So it's me. I think I did a good job if I can pat myself on the back here. We got some good sound this week. Let's start at not yet anyway. Let's start number 10 on our Drive Time Sports Sound Countdown this week. Seahawks owner Vinod Khosla happy to be purchasing his second favorite NFL team. Now, that didn't hit the ears of many people, right? Because how could Vinod Khosla, like any team, like you got to drop that. Okay, like we all watched other teams when we were growing up or whatever, but once you buy a team, that's your team. That would have been the perfect time for Vinod Khosla to disavow the idea that he likes the Steelers. He can't even like them. He can't even look at them. Don't even look at them. You're the Seahawks owner now. Now, Khosla took to social media to drive home the point that now he does want the Seahawks to win above every team, including the Steelers. But it just that, I played Madden too, right? And when you got into career mode, you would be able to choose, do you want to be an owner, a player, or a coach? And when you picked an owner, you could be either a wealthy billionaire with a lot of means, or you could be like a fan that grew up and owned the team. And you always pick the fan, right? Because that's what you are. You're a fan of your team and you're taking over your team virtually. But the problem is none of those people exist anymore in sports. At least Khosla is a football fan. That's a great start, and that's better than a lot of the people that he is now rubbing elbows with. At least he loves the game. At least he's a fan and knowledgeable. I want to defend him here. I think that it's a little unfair to be like, this guy should be burning a Terry Bradshaw jersey at the podium in his introductory press conference. He has a lot of billions of reasons actually to want the Seahawks to win any game against his beloved Steelers moving forward. But that's number 10, Vinod Khosla buying his now second favorite NFL team. At number 9 on the list, it is Angel Reese not really knowing how records work.
Congratulations on the NBA record, Angel. Tell me about you guys. Well, you know what I'm talking about. She knows.
No, I don't, because I be setting NBA records too.
How? Explain to me like I'm 5. How do you, Angel Reese, who play in the WNBA, how do you set NBA records? Now, what she did do is break Shamika Holdclaw's single game rebound record earlier this week, grabbed 26 rebounds. Remarkable accomplishment. But she can't set NBA records because she doesn't play in the NBA. And the NBA record for rebounds in a game is 55 by Wilt Chamberlain. So the logical disconnect with Angel Reese is one thing, but if you're going to say something like that, you better make sure that your 26 rebounds would be good for the NBA record, which it is not even close. But congratulations to Angel Reese for a phenomenal accomplishment. Not an NBA record. You have never and will never set an NBA record. I'm sorry. You could own all the WNBA records that you want, that you set your mind to, but you can't own any NBA records. That's the way this works. Number 9 on our Drive Time Sound Countdown. At number 7, it's Braves pitcher Chris Sale with an in-depth breakdown of pitching mechanics.
You threw a pitch over 100 miles per hour for the first time in 8 years. How? With my arm.
Braves Vision with the audio. It is true. I fact-checked this with my large staff. The way you throw 100 miles an hour is with your arm. I've not found throwing with your foot is as effective. But Chris Sale last night threw a complete game shutout against the Dodgers. The final score was 1-0. He struck out 11, didn't walk a single hitter, and hit 100 on the gun. I mean, it was something out of For the Love of the Game. Remember the Kevin Costner movie? Like, Chris Sale is on the back end of his career. He's on the proverbial back 9, if you will. And for this guy to be so amped going against the double champs and throwing a complete game that he hits 100 on the gun. I mean, that's like almost now the guy in For the Love of the Game threw did he throw a perfect game? I forget. Did Kevin Costner make that not the happiest ending? I forget how that movie ended. But he was pitching a perfect game. Remarkable from Chris Sale to hit 100 on the gun. The best part of that game was actually not something that I can play you because you had to see it. And it was his young son seeing his dad coming out of the dugout for the 9th inning because he knows as well as anybody that analytics have destroyed the starting pitching position. And nobody goes, I mean, the fact he should have been amped that his dad threw 8 innings, but Walt Weiss let him go out for the 9th, and his son was jacked. He was so excited to see his dad coming out for the 9th inning. And he eventually finished off the complete game shutout. To bring in another baseball movie into the conversation, how can you not be romantic about baseball? Chris Sale. With my arm. By the way, I saw this stat, and I had to deliver it to you because it's so good. First time ever that a pitcher has thrown a shutout with at least 10 strikeouts and no walks against the back-to-back reigning champion with 3 former MVPs in the lineup. I mean, come on. Put that on the plaque of Chris Sale in the Hall of Fame. Who came up with this stat? Pitcher throws a shutout with at least 10 strikeouts and no walks against a team that won back-to-back titles with 3 former MVPs in the lineup. Just the fact that that is the first time ever also shows that we need a salary cap in Major League Baseball. That can't happen. Back-to-back champions with 3 former MVPs in the lineup, that shouldn't be allowed. Salary cap. But that's true. It did happen. Number 6 on our Drive Time Sports Sound countdown, Deion Sanders with "You're not cool unless you have a lawsuit against you."
Is that a distraction? Do you think that's my first subpoena? Like when you have it, when you that, you get sued. You have off the field foolishness that if someone really sat down and explained it to you, you'll say, you got to be kidding. But it is what it is. I don't know anyone that's a game changer, a way maker that is not dealing with some type of lawsuit.
That was from earlier this week as Deion Sanders gets ready for the upcoming season and gets ready for his son Shiloh's bankruptcy case, which he will have to testify in. A judge today in Colorado said, no, you have to show up. Despite Deion saying he already won that case, he did not. So the day after CU plays Georgia Tech, he's going to have to appear to testify in that. But depressing that I now know I'm not him. I have been told repeatedly I am not him. And I always wondered why. Why am I not him? I don't have a lawsuit against me, apparently. And look, I'll say this about Deion Sanders in this whole thing. Yes, this adds to the Deion Sanders circus. But I am at the point with Colorado football that I'm done with every circus. Like, I just don't care. Like, I'm numb to it. One, it's Shiloh's problem. Like, he's being in the middle of it a little bit, but this is a former player. This is Deion Sanders' kid. This is not, I don't think it affects Colorado. I really don't. But yes, it does add to the circus a little bit. But I'm like, I'm numb to the circuses are at least entertaining. I'm not entertained anymore by any of this. The Buffs need to win football games. That's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm focused on. Not the other stuff. That was number 7. 7? Yes. Counting is hard for me. Give me a break. Now we go to number 6 on the countdown, which is Harrison Butker's nice field goal.
Harrison Butker on the field for a huge kick here.
All right, what do we got here? This is going to be a 69-yard field goal. How about a 69-yard field goal try with 3 seconds to go in the second quarter? Trying to beat that kid from Jacksonville. The kick is up, and the kick is going to be a lot of distance. He got it! A 69-yard field goal by Harrison Butker.
Chiefs radio on the call. Unfortunately, though, Harrison Butker did not beat that kid from Jacksonville, as Mitch Holtis mentioned. Cam Little still has the NFL record because Harrison Butker kicked this in the preseason. But still, I know the uniform he's wearing, nobody wants to give him any credit, but that was pretty good. And it should encourage more teams to let their kickers kick upwards of 70-yard field goals. More after this. Well, hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you on this Friday. Whether you're listening on your radio, two radio stations you can listen on, KVOR or Extra Sports 1300. You could stream the show on the apps of those two fine radio stations for free, or you could watch the show anywhere you scroll. If you'd like to take your participation to the next level, you can. I not only welcome it, I encourage it. Sometimes I demand it. 719-247-1313. You could call or text in the show, or you can simply drop a comment on the live stream you are watching. Perhaps you would have a thought or two that you would lend me regarding the three stories that are driving the show. All right, let us begin with story number one. Kale got absolutely paid. Kale McCarr did not sacrifice one bit on his latest deal. He didn't give up years. He didn't give up money, becoming the highest paid player in NHL history. His contract, 8 years, $163.2 million. He is the first player to cross the $20 million a year threshold, and he now leads everybody else by more than $27 million. And he deserves every bit of it. He could not that he wanted any of this to happen, but maybe his agent, I don't know him, but agents kind of strike me as not the most upstanding citizens. For his agent, I don't know that the timing of Cale Makar needing an extension could have been better. Because during the Western Conference Final, you saw that as important as Nathan MacKinnon is, and he is vitally important to what the Avalanche do, their most valuable player, their most important player is number 8. They could barely function without Cale Makar in that line. He's already the best defenseman in the NHL. That is not to be questioned. He is, in my estimation, the best defenseman, the best player to play that position since Bobby Orr. And when Cale Makar's 8-year extension and any other years he plays beyond that are over, he will be the gold standard to which all other defensemen are measured against. Because he truly is somebody that can play the two-way game. Avalanche wouldn't pay him more than $20 million a year if he couldn't hold down his position defensively. But what this does now is, and he's kind of been blocked a little bit by Nathan MacKinnon over the years. Now, some people have said it, but because we are kind of biased towards goals, assists, we look to Nathan MacKinnon. Cale Makar now is beyond. He's on a different plane of existence than most defensemen. He is just flat out an NHL player because he is being measured against other players. Both in his salary, he's higher paid than Kirill Kaprizov, who is a winger. He's higher paid than Connor McDavid, who is a centerman. So with him being compared to forwards in terms of his pay, he will also from now on be compared to forwards in terms of where he ranks among the best players in the NHL. He was already in that mix, but not talked about, I don't think, enough because he had 29 on his team. Now that flips. And the question's going to be asked over the coming days, is Cale Makar the best player in the league? And I will hold on to the bitter end with the guy in Edmonton. But Cale might be number 2. And the second best player in the NHL deserves to make more than $20 million a year over 8 years. Story number 2. The only thing that could have stolen the thunder from the Broncos preseason finale is Cale Makar signing his extension. But here we are, just a couple hours away from the Broncos' final preseason tune-up before the regular season begins. What I am watching out for tonight is, one, I just want to make sure that the defense is going to come out and play better than they did against Green Bay. Vance Joseph was very critical of them in their approach, their mentality. So as long as the Broncos defense comes out strong on the first series, we're done with that and we move on. It's all about the position battles. It's all about who's going to make the final 53. And the 3 places actually that I am most paying attention to: quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. Yes, I am more focused on the offensive side of the ball. I am not one that subscribes to, I haven't understood the whole Sam Ellinger phenomenon. I don't understand why the Broncos keep him. I don't understand why he doesn't go and take a better opportunity somewhere else. I don't understand it. And I have seen nothing this preseason that tells me that Sam Ellinger must be on the Denver Broncos roster. So will he show something tonight that makes me say, you know what, don't cut him? To me, with one exception right now in the NFL, which I will have said is the Pittsburgh Steelers, because they got 4 franchise quarterbacks on their roster, and I say that with a straight face. I'm a 2 QB guy. I really am. I don't think there's a reason to carry 3, but the Broncos have continued to do it. Will Sam Ellinger show something tonight to where, you can't cut him? At the running back position, McLaughlin and Bidet. I lean Bidet getting in there because of his special teams play. I think Jaleel McLaughlin last week and tonight is auditioning for a different NFL team. But if he was doing that last week, he played pretty well. And then at the wide receiver position, and Mike Kliss tweeted out that a list of players that are in line to play, one of them is Troy Franklin. One of them is not Pat Bryant. I've been talking about this throughout training camp. I feel like Troy Franklin might get dangled here as a trade piece, because I think he would have some value around the league with his deep threat ability, but he's clearly the odd man out in the Broncos wide receiver room once they added Jalen Waddle. And Pat Bryant became the training camp darling. Cortland Sutton is Cortland Sutton. Marvin Mims has a very clear, defined role where he doesn't need a lot of touches. I think Troy Franklin, like Jaleel McLaughlin, are auditioning for other jobs. I don't know if the Broncos can get anything for Jaleel McLaughlin. They might be able to with Troy Franklin. I would expect Davis Webb to have Jared Stidham looking in Troy Franklin's direction early tonight. And story number 3, also in the National Football League, here's Raiders head coach Clint Kubiak. It still sounds weird to say Raiders and Kubiak in the same sentence.
He needs another 3 preseason games. All those rookies do. And now that the season's starting, the practice reps get smaller, and that's just life. But us as coaches, we got to get ready to play, keep developing him.
That is Clint Kubiak after Fernando Mendoza failed to throw a touchdown through another interception in the Raiders' 18-12 loss to the San Francisco 49ers. And I don't think this could have worked out truly any better for Clint Kubiak from the standpoint of whether he starts Kirk Cousins or Fernando Mendoza week one. That if it was even a competition to begin with, whatever you want to call it, it worked itself out. Because what you have seen over the course of this preseason is not that Fernando Mendoza is not ready to start week one. He is. I still believe that even after watching him these last two games. He's ready to start. But what I've been saying all preseason, the Raiders aren't ready for him to start. The interception he threw last night bounced off the hands of his own receiver. The Raiders could barely protect him at times. So, yes, his numbers went down from what they were in game one. You see a Raiders team that you would be a little bit worried about putting Fernando Mendoza onto the field with. You're going to have to at some point, but you don't have to week one. And then you have Kirk Cousins not playing poorly enough to lose the job, which is what Clint Kubiak said. It was Kirk Cousins' job to lose. This actually worked out. I think most level-headed people, even in Raider Nation, would say, yeah, it's okay that Kirk starts week one. Now, give it a month. That's what I'm saying. Give it a month. And I think this all starts back up. And look, it will be a conversation every single week. But I'm thinking 4 weeks, first 4 weeks, and then the Raiders are in a bad enough position and the drum beats will get louder to put Fernando Mendoza in because the Raiders have to play him this season. It's a waste. It's an absolute waste of your proud franchise's history if you do not get Fernando Mendoza out on the field, and to save him for the last couple of weeks makes zero sense. Week 5, week 6, that's what I'm looking at for Fernando Mendoza to take over as the starting quarterback. But I think most people have watched the Raiders preseason and went, you know what? It's cool. Let Kirk Chains get out there for the first few weeks. 719-24-7-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. Coming up, we'll continue with the Drive Time Sports Sound Countdown and your thoughts on this Friday. Tomorrow night, Switchbacks FC is on the road in Lexington. Join Roland and I for the call. 5 o'clock kick, 4:30 pregame right here on Extra Sports 1300. Need a victory to close out the month of August. Do the Switchbacks. So we'll see tomorrow night if they can get one in August on a high note, and then that would put us officially into the stretch run of this Switchback season. 5 o'clock. Hope you join us for that. Extra Sports 1300 in the Extra Sports 1300 app. Brett, on the signing of Cale Makar, the Denver Nuggets are currently in the second apron because they signed two of their best players to two humongous contracts and can't pay anyone else. I hope the Avalanche aren't heading down the same avenue. There is a little bit of that going on with the Avalanche. They have Cale, McKinnon, and Natchez locked up until the 2030s at lucrative deals. Now, the economics of the NHL work differently than the NBA. Cale Makar makes $163.2 million. I think Nikola Jokic's average annual value on his next contract will be $163.2 million. So the economics are a little bit different, but the point you're getting at is a good one. The Avalanche are inevitably going to become more top-heavy as this goes on. Now, next year, it's worth noting, they're in a decent spot. They're going to lose Wedgwood. They're going to lose Lehkonen, most likely. They're going to have, so that's a top six winger, that's a backup goalie, and there are some depth pieces that they're going to, Nick Waugh is going to be a free agent. Like, they're going to lose all of these guys, most likely. Okay, but they're at positions that it's easier to find guys. Have you heard that before? The Denver Nuggets, right? Look, they're going to have to work their way around it. And I just think it puts even more into the idea that if you're Joe Sakic, and look, they had a quiet offseason other than this, and Joe Sakic's reasoning was so he could have flexibility to make a move at the deadline. So that, to me, says that Joe Sakic is going to at least consider some big game hunting. And with Connor Hellebuck now officially asking out, I think that it puts even more on the idea that the Avalanche should push for him. I do. I don't. I will say the steward of the Colorado Avalanche and Joe Sakic is infinitely better than the stewards of the Denver Nuggets. So that's another thing that you feel a little bit better about moving forward if you're an Avs fan as opposed to if you're a Nuggets fan. So I don't see as much of a doom and gloom scenario, but certainly it makes this year even bigger for the Avalanche because this roster over the next couple of years is going to look like, think of Arturi Lehkonen. He was a member of the Stanley Cup team. He's a beloved member of the Colorado Avalanche. He's been a big contributor. You already have Valeri Nichushkin leave or get traded. Now Arturi Lehkonen's going to leave. Who knows? Scott Wedgwood might be the best goalie on the roster again this year, and you might lose him. So this is going to be the reality for the Avs, but they still have Natchez, they still have McKinnon, they still have Makar. What are you going to do around that? I think you should be very much looking in the direction of Winnipeg and seeing if there's anything that you can offer to try and bring the best goalie in the world to play behind the best defenseman in the world and two of the three best players in the world and try to max out this roster for this year. But I would put Cale Makar in the same general vicinity as Natchez is the one that I wonder about. Natchez is the one where I look at it and go, okay, is this Murray? Is this Porter? Is this one you're going to look at and you say, man, I wish we weren't paying that guy that much money? I know the season he had. It was a terrific season. But he's the one with McKinnon and McCarr. And McKinnon and McCarr, to me, I think it's become clear, are not like Murray and Jokic. I mean, yes, they're the duo. I understand that. But I think you look at McKinnon and McCarr as a 1A, 1B situation as opposed to a clear number one and a clear number two on the Denver Nuggets. But even then, if you're all about Jamal Murray and you say you can't break up that two-man game, there was Aaron Gordon. There was Michael Porter. There's Christian Brown. Natchez is going to be the one that you're not going – the Avalanche are not going to regret signing Cale Makar to this contract. Could the tighter salary cap situation lead them to make some other ideas that make some other moves that they regret in the end? Maybe. But you're not regretting signing Cale Makar, a guy who's not yet 30, is the best at what he does, one of the best players, period, regardless of position in the NHL. And a guy that you couldn't even function without in that Vegas series. You're not going to lament signing Cale Makar. You're not going to regret it. And I think the same thing goes for Nathan McKinnon. I don't expect Joe Sakic to screw everything else up around them as badly as the Nuggets have. But there are going to be some moves that they're going to make that aren't going to pan out. And if there's one of those three long-term Avs that are now locked into the decade of the 2030s that you're going to go, oh no, this guy, I think it's Natchez. Gotta be smart about it. Let's get back to the countdown. Drive Time Sports Sound Countdown. To recap, at number 10, it was new Seahawks owner Vinod Klosla professing his love for another team, to which got a text from the 719. Once a Steelers fan, always a Steelers fan. Greatest fan base in the NFL. So Kosla's comment certainly resonated in Pittsburgh and among the Steelers fan base. Not taken as well with the Seahawks fan base. But Kosla took to social media to say, wait a minute. I am fully invested in the Seahawks' success, even against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Did not know as a young man immigrating to the United States that I was one day going to be the owner of specifically the Seattle Seahawks. So, yes, I picked another team. At number 9 on the countdown, because numbers have been difficult for me today, Angel Reese, not understanding how records work, claiming that she breaks NBA records after breaking a WNBA record this week. At number 8, it was Chris Sale with the very in-depth breakdown, how he hit 100 miles an hour on the gun for the first time this year. He answered with my arm. Number 7 was Deion Sanders, claiming that anybody who's anybody has had a lawsuit against them regarding his son, Shiloh. And at number 6, it was Harrison Butker with a nice field goal of 69 yards in preseason week 2. Tom reacted to that call from Mitch Holtis, the voice of the Chiefs. That was a preseason call from Chiefs radio. Yeah, it only amps up from here, Tom. But yeah, look, part of preseason as well is you got to make your own joy. You know what you're watching does not count. You're watching a bunch of guys who aren't going to be on the team. You're watching a lesser version of football. If we're being honest about it, the guy gets out there and kicks this 69-yard field goal. You go berserk. I have no problem with the call of Mitch Holtz. And, of course, I'm a fan listening to him as the Chiefs radio guy over the years. Let's continue the countdown at number 5. It's the always bubbly, never controversial Lane Kiffin bringing up the everyone is doing it defense.
We have made a decision to recruit kids around the country. And, through these multiple injunctions around the country, which is not a first time, college sports for a while, a group of players were granted a 5th year of eligibility in multiple sports. And through them winning their injunction and entry into the portal, they're available to recruit. So ourselves, like many places around the country, are recruiting them. And at the end of the day, because of these rulings, they're either going to play for you or they're going to play somewhere else around the country. So we've made a decision to recruit them, like probably most people are.
Well, that's not going to be Lane Kiffin's problem anymore, the recruiting of NFL players, because the Big Ten this week, followed by the SEC, followed by the Big 12, followed by the ACC, followed by the Mount West and the Sun Belt in the last 24 hours, all saying not that we won't have these players, but we will punish thee if you roster and play these guys. Because that's the workaround. To Lane Kiffin's point, the injunctions. They can't tell the players they can't come back. But they can punish to the nth degree any team that decides to play one of these guys. And that's the route that all these conferences are taking. We still don't have all of them. I'm taking a roll call. We haven't gotten to everyone yet. Need it. Mac, where you at? Big fan of your Tuesday night product, Maction. Need you to come out and say this as well. Everybody needs to be in lockstep here. But this will negatively impact LSU more than anybody else, because LSU, both in their football program and their men's basketball program, were heavily banking on professionals joining them for the upcoming season. And then you have Kim Mulkey rostering one player from Russia and one from Ukraine. Shocker that did not really work out. Not great for team chemistry. LSU coaches, one thing you can't say about them is that they don't do everything they can to win. They do that. And you have to protect them from themselves, which the SEC has. At number 4 on our countdown, Jeff Schwartz on FS1 with some Bo Nix missed information.
I do think he just is what he is. He's the same quarterback he was in college. I watched every one of the snaps at Oregon. He looks exactly the same guy in Denver. He's consistent, right? He's not going to make mistakes, as the coach said. But he's not going to push the ball down the field all that often.
That was on First Things First, and that drew the ire of Broncos fans far and wide, including the head coach of the Denver Broncos, Sean Payton, who replied to the tweet of the video of that take by Jeff Schwartz, saying, "Always easy to tell who works and who doesn't." Pay no attention to the 5 other things he mentioned leading up to that and the 5 things he said after. Bo Nix truthers were able to latch on to that thing about him not pushing the ball deep consistently and went, wait a minute. They community noted him. No one has had more touchdowns of 20 or more yards than Bo Nix, which is true. However, the very next thing that came out of Jeff Schwartz's mouth was that he was looking at it from a yard and average. Bo Nix was in the 20s in terms of the amount of distance his passes traveled last year. He, being the guy that throws the ball more than anybody else in the NFL, he actually doesn't push the ball down the field as much as you would think somebody who throws it more than any other quarterback in the NFL does. So without that context, yeah, it's easy to dunk on Jeff Schwartz if you're Sean Payton. But for a guy that wants us to do our homework and wants us to pay attention, sure seems like he bailed about 13 seconds into the clip and fired off a tweet. Maybe that might be slightly inaccurate. Everything else Jeff Schwartz said was true. At number 3 on our Drive Time Sports Countdown, it is Kwanzaa Jones' second appearance by a professional sports owner on the countdown this week. It is Kwanzaa Jones, the new owner of the Padres, with a bold and loud proclamation.
We understand. If you heard it, we're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to win and win it all. We hope it's sooner rather than later.
Now, the newest co-owner of the Padres, she co-owns the team with her husband. It went viral for her unbridled enthusiasm, but I'm kind of all in. I'm in. You know, the Padres for years have been trying to be the Dodgers, and now I think with this new ownership, they're going to carve out their own path, right? San Diego, you don't like to be told that you're basically LA, right? You have your own identity. You have some sore feelings over where the football team that used to call San Diego home now plays. So be different. Don't be the Dodgers, beat them. The Dodgers are corporate. They're the evil empire. They're not likable. And recently we found out that they're fraudsters, the Dodgers and their ownership. They're exploiters of loopholes. And they are ruining the sport. According to some people. I don't think they're ruining the sport. But I'm not a huge fan of the way they go about their business. The Padres have a chance to be different than all of that. They can be human. They can be fun. They can be genuine. They could be what the Red Sox were to the Yankees before the Red Sox, ironically, won and then became the Yankees. But that first time they won, the Red Sox were fun, right? Genuine, human. The Yankees were corporate and stuffy and, you know, the old ways. And here come this band of idiots, right, as they were called. Take shots before the game. Go out there. Be aggressive on the base pass. Have a payroll much less than the New York Yankees and beat them in historic fashion, as memory serves. That's why I hope Kwanzaa Jones brings to the Padres a different mindset. You don't want to be the Padres. Everybody hates them. Be the Padres. And if you can, by being the Padres, actually end up beating the Dodgers, you will be below. That's how that works. Number 3 on our Drive Time Sports Sound Countdown. At number 2, and this was going to be 1 before this afternoon, but number 2 on the list, which feels right now that I'm thinking about it, Deshaun Watson playing the victim.
I think you guys know too. The whole world knows. It has nothing to do about the performance. It's a little bit personal than that. I think that's a disrespectful thing. So yeah, I mean, keep whatever I feel with me and my family internally on how I feel about that. Yeah, just move on.
Do you not feel disrespected? I feel like you just said that you were disrespected. A staggering lack of self-awareness from Deshaun Watson, the Browns quarterback, further infuriating and turning any remaining Deshaun Watson supporters against him, calling the fan base disrespectful. And Todd Monken decided 48 hours later, that's my guy. That's our QB1. Playing like crap and alienating our fan base, this is the way that we win the AFC North. This will end poorly, and when it does end poorly, it will be widely celebrated, and it will be met with a ton of I told you so's, including from yours truly. This is not a football decision. This is not about who the better quarterback is. This is about throwing good money after bad, trying to somehow double down or get some kind of return out of the worst trade and worst contract in the history of sport. And nothing more. It's not about the Browns winning game. And that's a shame because that should be number one on the priority list for a team that has done very little winning in my lifetime. But it will end poorly. Ryan Fitzpatrick last night on the broadcast that Amazon Prime did, saying this will end badly. And Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit, like, you sure about that? And Ryan Fitzpatrick was like, yes. I love that Ryan Fitzpatrick went on national television or streaming or whatever you want to call it and basically said this will absolutely fail when Deshaun Watson fails. Couldn't happen to a better guy, by the way. Fitting that Deshaun Watson is number two on our Drive Time Sports Sound Countdown. But at number one, oh, happy day in Avalanche territory, Kale staying is number one. Fun fact, Kale McCarr, when his 8-year, $163.2 million extension expires, he will be just 29 years old. It's remarkable. Feels like he's been playing for a long time, and yet still just 21 years old. Kale McCarr. He doesn't age. But that is the deal signed today by Kale, and he becomes the highest paid player in NHL history, and a big old smile on his face, knowing he did not sacrifice one thing at the negotiating table. He didn't have to go home and be like, oh, do I want to give up some years on my deal or do I want to give up some money? He didn't have to do either. I've said this a couple of times, but I'll say it again. What took so long? If they were just going to give Kale whatever he wanted, why do you have to wait so long? Kale, here to stay, number one on our Drive Time Sports Sound Countdown this week. Take a break, take some of your thoughts on the countdown, the Broncos preseason finale tonight. I think the I don't watch preseason crowd feels pretty emboldened right now, given that no significant Broncos players will be playing tonight. But will you be watching? Back after this. Sometimes I think when I say something or text something to somebody, I think, this is funny. This is a good joke. And this is going to land. And we'll get a laugh. I found out twice today that that's not always the case. One, I'm not going to get into because it's personal and it was a text and I don't really want to talk about it. The second one, Gary texting in, Cale Makar is 27 years old. When the contract expires, he'll be 35. That's from Perry from the 719. I know. I was making it because he looks like a little kid. Like I was making. It's okay. But this is good. This is good because I'll go back home to my son, who's an aspiring stand-up comedian, and I'll say, like, look, even the best, not every joke lands. And today I tried to make a joke about how Cale Makar is a baby face and how when his extension is over, he'll only be 29 years old, and it didn't land. And it didn't get a laugh. So hang in there. So this is good. It'll turn into a teaching moment, much like the Broncos blowout loss in the preseason game against the Packers. This is a learning experience. Secretly, Sean Payton likes it because he can coach up his team. Secretly, no, not even secretly. Oh, Gary from the 719. Your phone auto-corrected your own name, Gary. How's that happen? Gary from the 719. I knew it was Gary. Why did I read Perry? Because like Ron Burgundy, I will read whatever is put in front of me. Like, watch this. Case in point. Let's go to the comments on the live stream. Boom. On Twitch from WhatsApp123. Nice beard. Is that this beard or is it the beard on the graphic that I go to? Because that's a fuller beard. This is my trimmed down beard. See, I'll read. You put it out there. I'm going to read it. Scott on Facebook says, would love to apply for a producer position with one caveat. I'd have to leave at 3:15 to pick up my daughter at the bus stop. LOL. Have a great weekend, Ryan. That's from, again, Scott. I'll take it because 15 minutes of a producer is, guess what? 15 minutes more of a producer than I currently have. And if you're missing why this is a huge deal, it's because I was going on and on and on about this fake San Francisco 49ers player that is really testing my empathy towards human beings who don't do a nominal amount of research to figure out if this dude actually plays for the San Francisco 49ers. One video of him running routes in swim trunks and a helmet on the beach should have been a dead giveaway. Just run it by your friend group. There's got to be somebody that could go, wait a minute, that dude. But anyway, I'm going on about this guy. Meanwhile, Cale Makar's extension is becoming finalized. I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't have a text. And then nobody popped into the studio. I'm in here alone. I'm on an island. I don't even have a volleyball that I painted a face on to keep me company. It is literally just me. So, Scott, done. The one caveat is we can pay you no money. You get no class credit for it. And it's not even that good of a learning opportunity. But other than that, be great. You'll love it. It's okay. We got to the Cale Makar conversation. Gary says he's in the car. Oh, so it's the voice to text. Still, I would like to believe that my phone, this phone here, where my half-hearted attempts at humor, not half-hearted, full-hearted attempts at humor go unread. I would hope that this phone, with as much time as we spend together, would anything resembling Ryan in the galaxy of Ryan would automatically type out Ryan. Voice to text, autocorrect. It's the least that it could do. It's the least that this hunk of junk could do for me, is make sure that they don't run any risk of confusing my name with any other word or name in any language. I'm just telling you, Gary, I'm looking out for you. I don't know if your phone is. All right. Speaking of looking out for you, someone that is. Game Day Men's Health. What if you knew exactly where your health stood today, where it could be in the future, and what you can do to make it better? That's what I found out at Game Day Men's Health. This week, had a full body scan, came up with all these results. My muscle mass, my, how much fat I'm carrying, the weight of each one of my legs, like it was just granular, which I love because I'm a numbers guy. So I love all the numbers I can get. And then Nikki and I went through on what I can do in terms of my workout routine, my diet, treatments, anything like that to improve the numbers even better and set myself up for longevity. So if you would like that, I think you would. GameDayMen'sHealth.com and book that appointment. It has been my pleasure to serve you. Talk to you Monday.